Question 1. Consider a scenario where a prospective student, preparing for the Andrei Saguna University entrance exam, discovers a method that could potentially provide them with an unfair advantage by accessing pre-exam materials that are not publicly available. This method is not explicitly forbidden by a specific rule, but is clearly against the spirit of fair competition. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action for this student? Option A. Share the discovered method with a small group of trusted friends to help them also gain an advantage, believing in mutual support. Option B. Immediately report the existence of this potential unfair advantage to the University Admissions Committee, requesting guidance on how to proceed ethically. Option C. Ignore the discovery and focus solely on traditional study methods, hoping that others do not exploit such loopholes. Option D. Utilize the discovered method to gain an advantage, rationalizing that if it's not explicitly forbidden, it is permissible. Correct answer is B. Immediately report the existence of this potential unfair advantage to the University Admissions Committee, requesting guidance on how to proceed ethically. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to excel and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead to unethical shortcuts. Therefore, careful judgment is required to uphold the principles of fairness and honesty. The correct approach involves recognizing the ethical boundary and prioritizing academic integrity over personal gain. This aligns with the Andrei Saguna University's regulations concerning fair examination practices and the broader ethical principles expected of all students, which are implicitly part of the university's charter and the Student Code of Conduct. Upholding these principles ensures a level playing field for all candidates and maintains the credibility of the university's admissions process. An incorrect approach that involves seeking or providing unauthorized assistance directly violates the Andrei Saguna University's examination regulations, specifically those pertaining to cheating and academic misconduct. This action undermines the integrity of the assessment and can lead to severe penalties, including disqualification from the entrance exam and potential disciplinary action. Another incorrect approach, such as attempting to bribe an invigilator, is not only a violation of university policy, but also constitutes a serious ethical and potentially legal offense, demonstrating a complete disregard for established rules and societal norms. A third incorrect approach, which involves spreading rumors about other candidates to create a distraction, is a form of sabotage and unethical behavior that violates the principles of fair competition and respect for others, and is contrary to the expected conduct of a prospective student. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical conduct and adherence to established rules. This involves clearly identifying the ethical dilemma, understanding the relevant regulations and their implications, considering the potential consequences of each course of action, and choosing the option that upholds integrity and fairness. In this context, the professional reasoning would lead to rejecting any form of unauthorized assistance or unethical behavior, and instead focusing on honest preparation. Question 2. Operational review demonstrates that a close acquaintance, who is a candidate for the Andrei Saguna University entrance exam, is experiencing significant anxiety and has approached you, a current student, for help. They have subtly hinted at wanting any advantage or a peek at what to expect to alleviate their stress. You are aware of the university's strict policies regarding academic integrity and the prohibition of any form of unauthorized assistance during the entrance examination process. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound approach to this situation? Option A. Suggest that they try to find past exam papers online, as reviewing older materials might offer some insight into the exam's format and difficulty. Option B. Politely but firmly refuse to provide any information or assistance that could compromise the integrity of the entrance exam, explaining that all candidates must undergo the assessment process fairly and independently according to university regulations. Option C. Provide the acquaintance with a list of topics that are highly likely to appear on the exam, based on your past experience, to help them focus their preparation. Option D. Offer general study tips and encouragement, focusing on broad subject areas without revealing any specific exam content or strategies that could be construed as an unfair advantage. The correct answer is B. Politely but firmly refuse to provide any information or assistance that could compromise the integrity of the entrance exam, explaining that all candidates must undergo the assessment process fairly and independently according to university regulations. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to uphold ethical standards while acknowledging the pressures faced by prospective students. The correct approach involves prioritizing academic integrity and the fairness of the examination process. This means refusing to provide any assistance that could compromise the integrity of the entrance exam, even if it means disappointing a friend or acquaintance. This aligns with the ethical principles of honesty, fairness, and professional responsibility expected of individuals associated with an academic institution. Specifically, within the framework of Andrei Saguna University's entrance exam regulations, any action that facilitates cheating or provides an unfair advantage is strictly prohibited and would be considered a serious breach of academic misconduct. University's guidelines emphasize that all candidates must undergo the assessment process independently and without external aid. An incorrect approach would be to provide the student with specific questions or answers from the exam. This directly violates the principle of academic integrity and constitutes aiding and abetting academic dishonesty. Such an action would undermine the validity of the entrance examination, create an unfair playing field for other candidates, and damage the reputation of Andrei Saguna University. Ethically, it is a betrayal of trust and professional responsibility. Another incorrect approach would be to offer vague hints or general advice that, while not directly providing answers, could still be interpreted as an attempt to guide the student towards specific content or strategies that would give them an unfair advantage. This approach, while seemingly less direct, still compromises the spirit of fair assessment and could be seen as a circumvention of the rules. It blurs the line between legitimate encouragement and unethical assistance. A third incorrect approach would be to ignore the request entirely without any form of communication. While this avoids direct complicity, it fails to uphold the ethical responsibility to uphold academic integrity and could be perceived as a missed opportunity to reinforce ethical standards. A more proactive stance, even if it involves a polite refusal, is generally preferred in professional settings to clearly communicate expectations and boundaries. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Identifying the ethical conflict. Recognize the tension between personal relationships and professional obligations. 2. Consulting relevant regulations and guidelines. Familiarize yourself with the specific rules and ethical codes governing the situation. In this case, Andrei Saguna University's entrance exam regulations and any associated ethical conduct policies. 3. Prioritizing integrity and fairness. Determine the course of action that best upholds the principles of honesty, fairness, and the integrity of the assessment process. 4. Communicating clearly and respectfully. If a refusal is necessary, do so in a manner that is firm yet polite, explaining the reasons without being accusatory. 5. Seeking guidance if unsure. If the situation is complex or ambiguous, consult with a supervisor or a designated ethics officer. Question 3. The investigation demonstrates that a prospective student, during the application process for the Andrei Saguna University entrance exam, submitted a personal essay that appears to contain significant plagiarized content from a publicly available academic journal. The applicant has no prior disciplinary record. What is the most ethically sound and procedurally correct course of action for the admissions committee member who discovered this discrepancy? Option A. Contact the applicant directly to discuss the suspected plagiarism and request an explanation. Option B. Discreetly report the suspected plagiarism to the university's Academic Integrity Office for further review and appropriate action. Option C. Ignore the discrepancy, assuming it may be an unintentional error, and proceed with the application review. Option D. Immediately reject the applicant's application based on the evidence of plagiarism. The correct answer is D. Immediately reject the applicant's application based on the evidence of plagiarism. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the conflict between maintaining client confidentiality and the obligation to report potential financial misconduct. The university entrance exam context implies a need for ethical reasoning and adherence to academic integrity principles, which often mirror professional conduct standards. Careful judgment is required to balance these competing duties. The correct approach involves discreetly escalating the concern through the appropriate internal channels within the university's admissions or academic integrity office, without directly confronting the applicant or revealing the information to unauthorized parties. This upholds the principle of confidentiality while fulfilling the ethical duty to address potential academic dishonesty. Regulatory frameworks governing academic institutions typically mandate reporting mechanisms for suspected breaches of integrity. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the information, as this fails to uphold the institution's commitment to academic integrity and could allow a candidate who has engaged in misconduct to gain admission. Another incorrect approach would be to directly confront the applicant with the evidence, as this could lead to premature accusations, compromise any formal investigation, and potentially violate privacy protocols. Finally, discussing the matter with colleagues not involved in the admissions process or with external parties would constitute a breach of confidentiality and professional ethics. Professionals in such situations should follow a structured decision-making process. First, identify the ethical principles at play: confidentiality, integrity, fairness. Second, consult relevant institutional policies and guidelines regarding academic misconduct and reporting. Third, determine the most appropriate and least harmful course of action that aligns with these principles and policies. And fourth, execute the chosen action discreetly and professionally. Question 4. The analysis reveals that during a critical Andrei Saguna University entrance examination, a candidate discovers a small, pre-written set of notes concealed within their examination booklet, which appears to have been inadvertently placed there by a previous user or a proctor error. The candidate recognizes that using these notes would significantly increase their chances of answering certain questions correctly, but also knows that such an action is strictly forbidden by the university's examination regulations. The candidate is under immense pressure to perform well to secure a place in their desired program. What is the most ethically and professionally responsible course of action for the candidate? Option A. Immediately and discreetly inform the invigilator or proctor about the presence of the unauthorized notes and request guidance on how to proceed. Option B. Attempt to subtly share the information from the notes with a neighboring candidate who appears to be struggling. Option C. Ignore the notes and proceed with the exam as if they were not present, hoping to avoid detection. Option D. Discreetly use the notes to answer the questions, as the error was not their own and it provides a significant advantage. The correct answer is D. Discreetly use the notes to answer the questions, as the error was not their own and it provides a significant advantage. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well in a university entrance exam, especially for a competitive program at Andrei Saguna University, can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. The core of the challenge lies in upholding ethical principles and university regulations when faced with a situation that could significantly impact a student's future. The correct approach involves prioritizing academic integrity and adhering strictly to the examination rules and ethical guidelines set forth by Andrei Saguna University. This means refusing to engage in any form of academic dishonesty, including using unauthorized materials or seeking external assistance during the exam. The justification for this approach is rooted in the fundamental principles of fairness, honesty, and the value of earned achievement. University regulations, by their nature, are designed to ensure a level playing field and to validate the knowledge and skills acquired through legitimate study. Any deviation from these regulations undermines the credibility of the examination process and the degrees awarded by the institution. An incorrect approach would be to succumb to the temptation of using the pre-written notes. This action directly violates the explicit rules of the examination, which prohibit the use of any unauthorized materials. Such a breach constitutes academic misconduct, which can lead to severe penalties, including disqualification from the exam and potential disciplinary action by the university. Another incorrect approach would be to attempt to discreetly consult with another candidate during the exam. This also constitutes a violation of examination rules, as it implies seeking unauthorized assistance and potentially sharing information, thereby compromising the integrity of the assessment. A third incorrect approach would be to ignore the presence of the notes and proceed with the exam without taking any action. While this might seem like a passive avoidance of direct wrongdoing, it fails to uphold the ethical responsibility to report or address a clear instance of potential academic dishonesty observed within the examination environment. This inaction could be interpreted as tacit approval or a failure to act in accordance with the university's expectations for academic probity. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's academic integrity policy and examination conduct rules. When faced with a dilemma, a professional should first identify the ethical principles at stake: honesty, fairness, integrity. Then, they should consider the potential consequences of each course of action, both for themselves and for the institution. The most ethical and professionally sound decision is always one that upholds the established rules and ethical standards, even if it means foregoing a potential personal advantage or facing immediate discomfort. This involves a commitment to transparency and accountability. Question 5. System analysis indicates that an admissions committee member for the Andrei Saguna University entrance exam has reviewed an application from a candidate who, while demonstrating strong potential in extracurricular activities and personal essays, narrowly missed the minimum academic threshold for admission. The candidate's personal circumstances, as detailed in their application, include significant family hardship that may have impacted their academic performance. The committee member feels a strong sense of empathy for the candidate and is aware of the university's stated commitment to diversity and inclusion. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound approach for the committee member to take? Option A. Objectively evaluate the candidate's application solely based on the published academic and aptitude criteria, ensuring that the decision is consistent with the established admission standards for all applicants. Option B. Recommend that the candidate be offered a place in a preparatory program if available, as an alternative to direct admission, to help them meet the academic requirements in the future. Option C. Advocate for the candidate's admission by highlighting their extracurricular achievements and personal circumstances to the rest of the committee, suggesting an exception be made due to their potential and hardship. Option D. Propose a review of the candidate's application with the specific objective of identifying any possible interpretations of the admission criteria that could justify their acceptance, even if it means stretching the established guidelines. The correct answer is C. Advocate for the candidate's admission by highlighting their extracurricular achievements and personal circumstances to the rest of the committee, suggesting an exception be made due to their potential and hardship. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a candidate's personal circumstances and the university's admission policies, which are designed to ensure fairness and meritocracy. The admissions committee member faces a dilemma where empathy for the candidate's situation clashes with the duty to uphold the integrity and impartiality of the selection process. The pressure to make an exception, potentially influenced by personal feelings or external advocacy, requires careful ethical navigation to avoid compromising the university's standards. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a rigorous and objective evaluation of the candidate's application strictly against the established admission criteria, without allowing personal biases or external pressures to influence the decision. This upholds the principle of fairness and equal opportunity for all applicants. The regulatory framework for university admission, as implicitly understood in the context of entrance exams like Andrei Saguna University's, mandates adherence to published criteria and transparent processes. Deviating from these criteria, even with good intentions, undermines the credibility of the admissions process and can lead to accusations of favoritism or discrimination. The ethical obligation is to treat all candidates equitably, based on their qualifications and suitability, as defined by the university standards. Incorrect approach is analysis. Advocating for the candidate's admission based on their difficult personal circumstances, despite not meeting the minimum academic requirements, represents a failure to adhere to the university's established admission criteria. This approach prioritizes personal sympathy over objective assessment, potentially violating the principles of fairness and meritocracy that underpin the admissions process. It could also set a precedent for future exceptions, eroding the integrity of the selection system. Suggesting a review of the candidate's application with a focus on finding loopholes or justifications to bypass the standard requirements demonstrates a lack of commitment to the established regulatory framework. This approach attempts to circumvent the rules rather than apply them consistently, which is ethically unsound and professionally irresponsible. It implies a willingness to manipulate the process to achieve a desired outcome, rather than upholding its intended fairness. Ignoring the candidate's situation and proceeding with the standard evaluation without any consideration for the context, while seemingly neutral, can be ethically problematic if the established criteria themselves are rigid and do not allow for any holistic review. However, in the context of an entrance exam, the primary mandate is to assess against defined academic and aptitude benchmarks. The failure here, if it were to be considered incorrect, would be a lack of due diligence in ensuring the criteria are applied fairly and without bias. But the core failure in the other incorrect approaches is the active deviation from established rules. The most significant ethical failure lies in actively seeking to bend or break the rules. Professional reasoning. Professionals in admissions roles must adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and ethical principles. This involves 1. Understanding and internalizing the university's admission criteria and the underlying rationale for these criteria. 2. Objectively assessing all applications against these criteria, ensuring consistency and impartiality. 3. Recognizing and managing personal biases and external influences that could compromise objective judgment. 4. Consulting with colleagues or supervisors when faced with complex ethical dilemmas or situations that require interpretation of policy. 5. Documenting the decision-making process to ensure transparency and accountability. The ultimate goal is to maintain the integrity and fairness of the selection process for all candidates. Question 6. To address the challenge of ensuring fairness and academic integrity during the Andrei Saguna University entrance examination, a candidate observes another applicant discreetly using unauthorized notes. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound course of action? Option A. Ignore the observed cheating to avoid potential conflict or repercussions. Option B. Offer to share your own notes with the student to help them pass. Option C. Confront the cheating student directly to stop the behavior. Option D. Immediately and discreetly report the observed cheating to the examination invigilator or proctor. Correct answer is D. Immediately and discreetly report the observed cheating to the examination invigilator or proctor. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Navigating this requires a strong ethical compass and adherence to the Andrei Saguna University's established regulatory framework and guidelines for entrance examinations. The core of the challenge lies in upholding the principles of fairness, honesty, and equal opportunity for all candidates. The correct approach involves prioritizing academic integrity and reporting the observed misconduct. This aligns with the fundamental ethical principles expected of all members of the academic community, including students and faculty, and directly reflects the spirit and letter of the Andrei Saguna University's regulations concerning fair examination practices. By reporting the incident, the individual upholds the integrity of the examination process, ensuring that all candidates are evaluated on their own merits and that the university's admission standards are maintained. This proactive stance prevents unfair advantages and contributes to a culture of honesty. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the observed cheating. This failure to act condones unethical behavior and undermines the fairness of the examination. It violates the implicit trust placed in all participants to uphold academic standards and can lead to a perception that such actions are acceptable, thereby eroding the university's reputation. Another incorrect approach would be to confront the cheating student directly without involving the appropriate university authorities. While seemingly an attempt to resolve the issue, this bypasses the established procedures for handling academic misconduct. It could lead to an escalation of the situation, potential personal risk, and importantly, it does not guarantee that the university's disciplinary processes will be initiated, thus failing to address the systemic issue of academic integrity. A further incorrect approach would be to offer assistance to the cheating student. This is a direct violation of academic integrity policies and constitutes complicity in academic dishonesty. It not only compromises the fairness of the examination, but also places the individual offering assistance in a position of severe ethical and disciplinary jeopardy. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's academic integrity policies and procedures. When faced with observed misconduct, the immediate step should be to identify the appropriate authority to report the incident to, typically an invigilator, proctor, or examination supervisor. The focus should be on providing factual information without personal judgment or intervention. This systematic approach ensures that the university's established protocols are followed, leading to a fair and consistent resolution. Question 7. The review process indicates that a preliminary report on a significant research project, funded by a potential major donor, has uncovered some unexpected challenges and delays that could negatively impact the project's timeline and initial findings. The university's public relations department is eager to release a positive update to coincide with the donor's upcoming visit, suggesting a focus on the project's potential and downplaying the current setbacks. Which of the following approaches best upholds the ethical standards expected of Andrei Saguna University? Option A. Consult with the potential donor to understand their specific communication preferences before finalizing any report or announcement, prioritizing their satisfaction in the messaging. Option B. Prepare a report that accurately reflects the project's current status, including the challenges and delays, while also highlighting the team's strategies for overcoming these obstacles and the project's long-term potential. Option C. Focus the report solely on the positive aspects of the project that are already confirmed, suggesting that the challenges are minor and will be resolved without significant impact to ensure the donor's continued support. Option D. Draft an announcement that emphasizes the project's groundbreaking potential and future successes, omitting any mention of current difficulties to maintain donor enthusiasm and positive public perception. Correct answer is B. Prepare a report that accurately reflects the project's current status, including the challenges and delays, while also highlighting the team's strategies for overcoming these obstacles and the project's long-term potential. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for positive publicity and the ethical obligation to present accurate and unbiased information. The pressure to secure a favorable outcome for a high-profile project, especially one involving a potential donor, can create an environment where objectivity might be compromised. Careful judgment is required to navigate these competing interests while upholding academic integrity and professional ethics. The correct approach involves a commitment to transparency and factual reporting, even if it means presenting a less flattering picture of the project's initial stages. This aligns with the core ethical principles of academic research and professional conduct, which prioritize truthfulness and the avoidance of misrepresentation. Specifically, adhering to the Andrei Saguna University's Code of Ethics, which emphasizes integrity in all university communications and research endeavors, is paramount. This approach ensures that the university's reputation is built on a foundation of honesty, fostering trust with students, faculty, and the wider community. An incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate positive spin over factual accuracy would be a significant ethical failure. This would violate the principle of honesty by deliberately omitting or downplaying negative findings, thereby misleading stakeholders. Such an action could also contravene university policies regarding the responsible dissemination of information and could damage the university's credibility in the long term. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on the potential donor's expectations without considering the broader ethical implications, is also professionally unacceptable. While donor relations are important, they should not supersede the university's commitment to academic integrity and truthful reporting. This approach risks creating a perception of undue influence and could lead to a situation where the university's research is seen as compromised. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's ethical guidelines and codes of conduct. When faced with conflicting pressures, professionals should first identify the core ethical principles at stake. They should then gather all relevant facts and assess the potential consequences of different courses of action. Seeking advice from a supervisor or an ethics committee, if available, can provide valuable perspective. Ultimately, the decision should prioritize honesty, transparency, and the long-term integrity of the institution over short-term gains or pressures. Question 8. What factors determine the appropriate course of action for an invigilator at the Andrei Saguna University entrance exam when observing a student exhibiting behavior that strongly suggests potential academic dishonesty, such as discreetly looking at notes hidden under their exam paper? Option A. The invigilator's desire to maintain a calm examination environment by overlooking minor irregularities to avoid causing a scene. Option B. The invigilator's personal opinion on the severity of the suspected infraction and whether it warrants disrupting the examination for other candidates. Option C. The invigilator's adherence to the Andrei Saguna University's established examination regulations and procedures for handling suspected academic misconduct, ensuring fairness and due process. Option D. The invigilator's immediate assessment of the student's perceived stress level and the potential impact of a formal accusation on their future academic prospects. The correct answer is D. The invigilator's immediate assessment of the student's perceived stress level and the potential impact of a formal accusation on their future academic prospects. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead some students to consider unethical shortcuts. The university, represented by the invigilator, has a duty to uphold the fairness and validity of the examination process, which is crucial for maintaining its reputation and ensuring that admitted students possess genuine capabilities. Careful judgment is required to balance the need for a secure examination environment with the humane treatment of students who may be experiencing stress or anxiety. The correct approach involves the invigilator acting with impartiality and adherence to the Andrei Saguna University's examination regulations. This means identifying the suspected infraction, gathering evidence discreetly, and following the established protocol for handling such incidents. This protocol typically involves informing the student of the alleged violation, allowing them an opportunity to respond, and then reporting the incident to the appropriate university authority for a fair investigation and decision. This upholds academic integrity, ensures due process for the student, and maintains the credibility of the entrance exam. An incorrect approach would be to immediately accuse the student publicly without proper investigation. This violates the principle of natural justice and can cause undue distress and reputational damage to the student. It also bypasses the university's established procedures for handling academic misconduct, undermining the fairness of the disciplinary process. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the suspected infraction due to sympathy for the student's perceived stress or the desire to avoid confrontation. This failure to act compromises the integrity of the examination system. It allows potential cheating to go unaddressed, disadvantaging honest candidates and devaluing the qualifications awarded by the university. It also sets a dangerous precedent, signaling that academic misconduct may be tolerated. A third incorrect approach would be to offer the student a warning and allow them to continue the exam without further action, hoping they will not repeat the behavior. While seemingly lenient, this still fails to address the potential violation that has already occurred. It does not fulfill the invigilator's responsibility to report suspected breaches of regulations and can be seen as a dereliction of duty, potentially leading to future issues if the student's actions were indeed indicative of a pattern of dishonesty. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's examination regulations and code of conduct. The invigilator must remain objective, focusing on observable behaviors and evidence rather than assumptions or emotions. The process should be: 1. Observe and document the suspected behavior. 2. Discreetly investigate if possible without disrupting other candidates. 3. If sufficient grounds exist, follow the university's protocol for reporting suspected academic misconduct, which typically includes informing the student and escalating the matter to the designated disciplinary body. 4. Cooperate fully with the subsequent investigation. Question 9. The efficiency study reveals that a fellow intern who is working on a client project appears to be fabricating data points in their reports to meet project deadlines. You have observed this behavior on multiple occasions, and it seems to be a pattern. You are concerned about the integrity of the project and the potential repercussions for the client and the university's reputation. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Ignore the situation, assuming it is not your responsibility to police the actions of others, and that the supervisor will eventually discover any discrepancies. Option B. Discuss your observations with other interns and colleagues to gauge their opinions and gather support before deciding what to do. Option C. Discreetly report your observations and concerns to your direct supervisor or the designated ethics officer within the university's business program, providing factual details without speculation. Option D. Confront the fellow intern directly and demand an explanation for their actions, threatening to report them if they do not cease. Correct answer is C. Discreetly report your observations and concerns to your direct supervisor or the designated ethics officer within the university's business program, providing factual details without speculation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it forces a decision between potentially conflicting duties: the duty to maintain client confidentiality and the duty to act with integrity and in the best interests of the firm and its stakeholders. The student, acting as an intern, is privy to sensitive information that, if revealed, could have significant negative consequences for the client and the firm's reputation. However, withholding information that could prevent a serious ethical breach by a colleague also carries ethical weight. The core of the challenge lies in balancing these competing obligations within the framework of professional conduct expected of individuals associated with Andrei Saguna University's business programs. The correct approach involves discreetly reporting the observed behavior to a designated supervisor or ethics officer within the university's framework, without directly confronting the colleague or disclosing confidential client information to unauthorized parties. This approach upholds the principles of integrity and professional responsibility by addressing a potential ethical violation through established internal channels. It respects client confidentiality by not revealing specific client details and avoids unnecessary escalation or personal confrontation. The regulatory and ethical justification stems from the university's likely internal code of conduct for students and interns, which would emphasize reporting mechanisms for suspected misconduct and the importance of maintaining professional integrity. Such codes typically prioritize addressing ethical concerns through appropriate channels rather than direct, potentially damaging, confrontation or gossip. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the situation. This fails to uphold the duty of integrity and could allow an ethical breach to continue, potentially harming the client, the firm, and the university's reputation. It demonstrates a lack of professional responsibility. Another incorrect approach would be to confront the colleague directly and publicly. This could lead to defensiveness, denial, and further damage to professional relationships and the firm's environment, while also potentially violating confidentiality if client-specific details are alluded to. It bypasses established reporting protocols and can be seen as unprofessional and accusatory. A third incorrect approach would be to discuss the observed behavior with other interns or colleagues. This constitutes gossip and a breach of confidentiality, potentially damaging the reputation of the colleague and the firm, and does not constitute a constructive resolution of the ethical concern. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve: 1. Identifying the ethical issue and potential harm. 2. Consulting relevant university policies, codes of conduct, or ethical guidelines. 3. Considering the duties owed to the client, the firm, and oneself. 4. Determining the most appropriate and confidential channel for reporting the concern. 5. Acting decisively and ethically through the chosen channel, avoiding speculation or personal judgment. Question 10. The efficiency study reveals that a significant number of questions in the Andrei Saguna University entrance exam were inadvertently leaked to a small group of prospective applicants prior to the examination date. The study also indicates that these applicants subsequently achieved unusually high scores. As a faculty member involved in the exam administration, what is the most ethically and regulatorily sound course of action? Option A. Proceed with the exam results as is, assuming the leak was minor and unlikely to have significantly impacted the overall cohort's performance, and focus on improving future exam security. Option B. Immediately report the findings of the efficiency study, including the evidence of the leak and the disproportionately high scores, to the university's Academic Integrity Committee for a thorough investigation and appropriate action. Option C. Publicly announce the leak to the university community and prospective applicants to ensure full transparency, regardless of the immediate impact on the current exam cycle. Option D. Discreetly inform the affected applicants of the leak and advise them to withdraw their applications to avoid potential future repercussions. The correct answer is B. Immediately report the findings of the efficiency study, including the evidence of the leak and the disproportionately high scores, to the university's Academic Integrity Committee for a thorough investigation and appropriate action. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it pits the pursuit of academic excellence and institutional reputation against the ethical obligation to ensure fair and accurate assessment. The university entrance exam is a critical gateway, and any compromise in its integrity can have profound consequences for both the applicants and the institution's standing. The pressure to achieve high pass rates or to admit a specific cohort can create an environment where ethical boundaries are tested. Careful judgment is required to navigate the competing interests and uphold the fundamental principles of fairness and academic honesty. The correct approach involves meticulously documenting the identified irregularities and presenting them through the established channels for academic integrity review. This upholds the principle of due process and ensures that any decision regarding the exam results is based on objective evidence and established procedures. Specifically, adhering to the Andrei Saguna University's internal regulations concerning examination conduct and appeals is paramount. This approach prioritizes transparency, fairness, and the integrity of the examination process, aligning with the ethical duty of all university personnel to safeguard academic standards. An incorrect approach that involves directly altering the exam results to meet an arbitrary target without proper investigation or authorization constitutes a severe breach of academic integrity and professional ethics. This action undermines the validity of the entire examination process and is a direct violation of university policies designed to prevent fraud and ensure fairness. Furthermore, ignoring the identified irregularities and proceeding with the current results without addressing the potential for unfair advantage or disadvantage to candidates is ethically negligent. It fails to uphold the duty of care owed to all applicants and compromises the university's commitment to meritocracy. Another incorrect approach, such as discussing the irregularities with colleagues outside of the formal reporting structure, could lead to the spread of misinformation, potential bias in future decision-making, and a breakdown of the confidential and systematic process required for handling such sensitive matters. This violates professional discretion and the established protocols for academic misconduct. Professionals facing similar situations should employ a structured decision-making process. This involves 1. Identifying the ethical issue and potential conflicts of interest. 2. Consulting relevant university regulations, codes of conduct, and examination policies. 3. Gathering objective evidence of any irregularities. 4. Reporting the findings through the designated official channels, maintaining confidentiality. 5. Cooperating fully with any subsequent investigation. 6. Acting with integrity and impartiality throughout the process, prioritizing the fairness and validity of the examination. Question 11. Quality control measures reveal a statistically significant anomaly in the grading of a specific section of the Andrei Saguna University entrance exam, suggesting a potential deviation from standard marking procedures. A senior faculty member, who also serves on the university's Board of Trustees, has informally expressed concern about the fairness of the grading for a particular group of candidates, hinting at possible external influence on the examination process. The examination committee is tasked with addressing this situation. Which of the following represents the most ethically sound and procedurally correct approach for the examination committee? Option A. Dismiss the anomaly as a minor statistical fluctuation and proceed with the current grading, advising the senior faculty member that the examination process is robust. Option B. Publicly announce that an investigation is underway, potentially causing undue anxiety among all candidates and stakeholders, and await external auditors to dictate the next steps. Option C. Immediately adjust the scores of the affected candidates to align with the perceived fairness, based on the senior faculty member's informal feedback, to avoid potential controversy. Option D. Initiate a confidential, thorough review of the grading process for the identified section, collecting all relevant documentation and statistical data, and consult the university's official examination regulations to determine the appropriate course of action based on objective findings. The correct answer is D. Initiate a confidential, thorough review of the grading process for the identified section, collecting all relevant documentation and statistical data, and consult the university's official examination regulations to determine the appropriate course of action based on objective findings. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between maintaining academic integrity and responding to external pressure, potentially from influential stakeholders. The university entrance exam is a critical gatekeeper, and any compromise in its fairness or accuracy can have long-term repercussions on the institution's reputation and the validity of its admissions process. The need for careful judgment arises from the ethical obligation to uphold the principles of fairness, transparency, and meritocracy in education. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective investigation of the alleged irregularities, adhering strictly to the established protocols for handling such complaints. This approach prioritizes evidence-based decision-making and ensures that any actions taken are justifiable and in line with the university's commitment to academic standards. Specifically, it requires the examination committee to 1. Acknowledge the complaint and initiate a formal review process. 2. Gather all relevant evidence, including exam papers, grading sheets, and any communication related to the alleged irregularities. 3. Analyze the evidence objectively, looking for patterns or discrepancies that support or refute the claims. 4. Consult the university's official regulations and ethical guidelines concerning exam integrity and the handling of academic misconduct. 5. Make a decision based solely on the findings of the investigation, ensuring that any remedial actions, if necessary, are proportionate and fair to all candidates. This aligns with the ethical imperative to protect the integrity of the examination process and ensure equal opportunity for all applicants, as mandated by the principles of academic governance and fairness inherent in university regulations. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the complaint without a proper investigation, especially if the complainant is perceived as influential. This failure would violate the ethical duty to address all concerns seriously and could lead to accusations of bias or favorability, undermining trust in the admissions process. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately implement punitive measures against the candidate without conclusive evidence, which would be a breach of natural justice and university policy regarding due process. Furthermore, succumbing to external pressure to alter results or ignore irregularities would represent a severe ethical lapse, compromising the university's commitment to meritocracy and potentially leading to legal challenges. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Identify the core ethical principles at stake: fairness, integrity, transparency. 2. Understand the relevant university policies and regulatory frameworks governing examinations and complaints. 3. Gather all pertinent facts and evidence. 4. Consider the potential consequences of each possible course of action. 5. Consult with relevant authorities or ethics committees if the situation is complex or ambiguous. 6. Act decisively and transparently, communicating the process and outcome appropriately. Question 12. The efficiency study reveals that while Andrei Saguna University's overall academic performance is strong, certain admission metrics are lagging behind peer institutions, potentially impacting future rankings. The Dean of Admissions, under pressure to improve these metrics, is considering ways to present the study's findings to the university board in a manner that emphasizes the positive aspects and downplays the areas of concern, without explicitly misrepresenting the data. Which of the following approaches best upholds the ethical and professional responsibilities of the dean? Option A. Present the full findings of the efficiency study, including both strengths and weaknesses, and propose a strategic plan for genuine improvement in admission metrics, focusing on long-term, sustainable solutions. Option B. Selectively present only the positive findings of the efficiency study, highlighting areas where the university excels, and frame the lagging metrics as minor issues that do not significantly impact the university's overall standing. Option C. Commission a follow-up internal review of the admission metrics, with the implicit understanding that the review should focus on identifying external factors that explain the lower scores, thereby shifting blame away from the university's internal processes. Option D. Propose a minor, cosmetic adjustment to the presentation of the admission data within the study's report to make the lagging metrics appear less significant, while assuring the board that no actual data has been altered. The correct answer is A. Present the full findings of the efficiency study, including both strengths and weaknesses, and propose a strategic plan for genuine improvement in admission metrics, focusing on long-term sustainable solutions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the pursuit of academic excellence and institutional reputation with the ethical obligation to ensure fair and transparent assessment practices. The pressure to achieve high rankings can create an environment where shortcuts or questionable methods might be considered, jeopardizing the integrity of the university's admissions process. Careful judgment is required to uphold ethical standards while also striving for institutional improvement. The correct approach involves a commitment to transparency and adherence to established university admission policies and ethical guidelines. This means acknowledging the study's findings without resorting to manipulative practices. Instead, the focus should be on implementing genuine improvements in teaching, research, and student support that naturally lead to better outcomes and, consequently, improved rankings. This aligns with the ethical principles of honesty, fairness, and integrity, which are paramount in academic institutions. Specifically, it upholds the Andrei Saguna University's commitment to merit-based admissions and the pursuit of knowledge through legitimate means, as implicitly guided by general academic ethical frameworks that prioritize academic integrity and responsible institutional conduct. An incorrect approach that involves selectively highlighting positive data points while downplaying negative ones, even if not outright fabricating information, constitutes a form of misleading representation. This violates the ethical principle of honesty and transparency, as it creates a distorted picture of the university's performance. Such an action could undermine trust among stakeholders and potentially lead to misinformed decisions. Another incorrect approach, which is to subtly influence the perception of the study's findings through biased interpretation or selective communication, is also ethically problematic. This can be seen as a form of manipulation, where the intent is to create a favorable impression without necessarily reflecting the full reality. This erodes the principle of objective reporting and can lead to a loss of credibility. A further incorrect approach, such as proposing to adjust the data or methodology to achieve a more favorable outcome, represents a severe breach of academic integrity and ethical conduct. This is akin to data manipulation or fabrication, which is fundamentally dishonest and undermines the very foundation of academic research and assessment. It directly contravenes the principles of scientific rigor and ethical research practices. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multi-step approach. First, thoroughly understand the findings of the study and their implications. Second, consult relevant university policies, ethical codes, and admission regulations. Third, engage in open and honest communication with relevant stakeholders, including faculty, administration, and potentially admissions committees. Fourth, prioritize solutions that enhance the university's core mission and academic quality through legitimate means, rather than seeking superficial improvements. Finally, always act with integrity and transparency, ensuring that all decisions and actions are defensible from an ethical and regulatory standpoint. Question 13. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a prospective student whose application is currently under review for admission to Andrei Saguna University may have misrepresented critical academic achievements on their application form. The admissions committee member who identified this discrepancy has a strong suspicion of deliberate falsification, which, if true, violate university admission policies and potentially impact the integrity of the admissions process. What is the most ethically and procedurally sound course of action for the admissions committee member? Option A. Immediately escalate the concern to the university's legal counsel and the admissions director, providing all gathered evidence and requesting guidance on the appropriate next steps according to university policy and ethical guidelines. Option B. Disregard the suspicion as it is not definitively proven and proceed with the application review as normal to avoid potential accusations of bias or unfairness. Option C. Share the suspicion and the evidence with other faculty members outside the admissions committee to gauge their opinions on the matter. Option D. Directly contact the prospective student to confront them about the suspected misrepresentation and request clarification before taking any further action. The correct answer is A. Immediately escalate the concern to the university's legal counsel and the admissions director, providing all gathered evidence and requesting guidance on the appropriate next steps according to university policy and ethical guidelines. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain client confidentiality versus the potential need to disclose information that could prevent harm. The core tension lies in balancing the duty of secrecy with the responsibility to act in the public interest or to prevent serious wrongdoing. Careful judgment is required to navigate the nuances of professional codes of conduct and any relevant legal frameworks that might permit or mandate disclosure in exceptional circumstances. The correct approach involves a thorough internal review and consultation process before any disclosure. This typically includes seeking guidance from senior colleagues, the firm's compliance department, or a professional ethics advisor. The aim is to ascertain if the information truly falls within the scope of a mandatory or permissible disclosure under the applicable regulatory framework for Andrei Saguna University's entrance exam context. This approach upholds the principle of confidentiality while ensuring that any deviation is justified, documented, and compliant with the highest ethical standards and any specific regulations governing academic admissions or professional conduct within the university's purview. An incorrect approach of immediate, unilateral disclosure without internal consultation breaches the fundamental duty of client confidentiality. This can lead to severe reputational damage, loss of trust, and potential disciplinary action. Another incorrect approach, that of ignoring the information entirely, fails to address potential ethical or regulatory breaches that could have wider implications, potentially exposing the university or individuals to risk and failing to uphold professional integrity. A third incorrect approach, that of disclosing the information to unauthorized third parties outside of a formal, justified process, also violates confidentiality and could lead to legal repercussions. Professionals facing such dilemmas should employ a structured decision-making framework. This involves 1. Identifying the ethical and professional obligations at play. 2. Gathering all relevant facts and understanding the context. 3. Consulting applicable codes of conduct, regulations, and university policies. 4. Seeking advice from experienced professionals or ethics committees. 5. Evaluating the potential consequences of each course of action. And 6. Documenting the decision-making process and the final decision. Question 14. Governance review demonstrates that during a recent Andrei Saguna University entrance exam, a candidate was observed discreetly receiving assistance from another individual present in the examination hall. As a proctor, you witnessed this interaction. What is the most ethically and procedurally sound course of action? Option A. Ignore the incident to avoid causing disruption and potential distress to the candidates, assuming it was a minor or unintentional act. Option B. Approach the candidate after the examination concludes and advise them against such behavior in the future without reporting the current incident. Option C. Discreetly signal to the candidate that their actions are being observed, hoping they will cease without further escalation. Option D. Immediately and discreetly halt the examination for the involved candidates and report the incident to the examination supervisor and the university's academic integrity office. The correct answer is D. Immediately and discreetly halt the examination for the involved candidates and report the incident to the examination supervisor and the university's academic integrity office. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. Pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation, upholding ethical principles while respecting the university's regulations. The correct approach involves reporting the observed misconduct to the appropriate university authorities. This upholds the principle of academic integrity, which is fundamental to the credibility of any educational institution. By reporting, the individual acts as a responsible member of the academic community, contributing to a fair and honest examination process. This aligns with the Andrei Saguna University's stated commitment to ethical conduct and the principles of fair assessment, as implicitly understood within any reputable academic framework. Failing to report the observed misconduct, or attempting to discreetly assist the student, represents a significant ethical and regulatory failure. Ignoring the situation implicitly condones cheating and undermines the fairness of the examination for all other candidates. Assisting the student, even with good intentions, directly violates the rules of the examination and constitutes complicity in academic dishonesty. Both actions erode the trust placed in students and the integrity of the entrance process. Professionals facing similar situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical conduct and adherence to established rules. This involves 1. Identifying the ethical conflict and potential consequences. 2. Consulting relevant university policies and codes of conduct. 3. Choosing the action that best upholds academic integrity and fairness, even if it is difficult. 4. Documenting the decision-making process and any actions taken. Question 15. The efficiency study reveals a statistically significant anomaly in the reported student success rates for a particular program, suggesting a potential overstatement compared to objective external benchmarks. As a senior administrator at Andrei Saguna University, you are aware that this program is crucial for the university's reputation and attracts significant funding. What is the most ethically responsible course of action? Option A. Publicly dismiss the efficiency study's findings as potentially flawed or based on incomplete data, emphasizing the program's historical success and its importance to the university's strategic goals. Option B. Initiate a comprehensive internal review to investigate the discrepancy, ensuring all data collection and reporting processes are scrutinized, and take corrective action if any irregularities are found, while maintaining transparency with relevant stakeholders. Option C. Instruct the relevant department to reevaluate the data using a methodology that aligns more favorably with the university's desired outcomes, without explicitly acknowledging the initial discrepancy. Option D. Focus solely on the positive aspects of the program's performance in all public communications, omitting any mention of the efficiency study's findings or the identified anomaly. The correct answer is B. Initiate a comprehensive internal review to investigate the discrepancy, ensuring all data collection and reporting processes are scrutinized, and take corrective action if any irregularities are found, while maintaining transparency with relevant stakeholders. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the pursuit of academic excellence and institutional reputation with the ethical obligation to ensure fair and transparent assessment processes. The pressure to achieve high rankings can create a temptation to manipulate data or overlook irregularities, which directly conflicts with the core principles of academic integrity and ethical conduct expected of university staff. Careful judgment is required to navigate these competing pressures and uphold the university's commitment to honest evaluation. The correct approach involves a commitment to transparency and adherence to established university policies regarding data reporting and research integrity. This means acknowledging the discrepancy identified in the efficiency study, initiating a thorough internal review to understand the cause of the anomaly, and taking corrective action if any irregularities are found. This approach aligns with the ethical principles of honesty, fairness, and accountability, which are fundamental to maintaining the credibility of Andrei Saguna University and its academic programs. Specifically, it upholds the university's responsibility to provide accurate information to stakeholders and to ensure that its performance metrics are based on genuine achievements rather than misleading data. An incorrect approach of ignoring the findings or attempting to downplay their significance would represent a failure to uphold professional integrity. This would violate the ethical duty to be truthful and transparent, potentially misleading students, faculty, prospective applicants, and funding bodies about the university's actual performance. Such an action could also lead to reputational damage if the discrepancy is later discovered, undermining trust in the institution. Another incorrect approach, that of immediately attributing the discrepancy to external factors without investigation, is also professionally unsound. While external factors can influence efficiency, a responsible professional must first conduct a thorough internal review to rule out any internal issues or misrepresentations. Failing to do so demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a potential avoidance of responsibility. A third incorrect approach, that of selectively presenting data to support a favorable narrative while omitting the concerning findings of the efficiency study, is a clear breach of ethical conduct. This constitutes data manipulation and misrepresentation, which are serious academic and professional offenses. It directly undermines the principles of honesty and integrity that are paramount in any academic institution. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Acknowledge and document the identified issue. 2. Consult relevant university policies and ethical guidelines. 3. Initiate a fair and impartial investigation to determine the root cause. 4. Communicate findings transparently to relevant stakeholders. 5. Implement appropriate corrective actions and preventative measures. 6. Uphold the highest standards of integrity and accountability throughout the process. Question 16. The efficiency study reveals a significant discrepancy in the data used for calculating scholarship eligibility for prospective students, potentially leading to some applicants being unfairly disadvantaged. As an intern assisting with the study, you have identified the source of the error. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Attempt to correct the discrepancy in the system yourself to ensure fairness for all applicants. Option B. Report the discrepancy and its source to your direct supervisor and the university's designated ethics officer. Option C. Publicly disclose the discrepancy to the student body and local media to ensure transparency. Option D. Ignore the discrepancy, as it is not your direct responsibility to correct it, and you are only an intern. The correct answer is B. Report the discrepancy and its source to your direct supervisor and the university's designated ethics officer. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it forces a decision between potentially conflicting ethical duties and professional responsibilities. The student, acting as an intern, has discovered a significant discrepancy that could impact the university's reputation and the integrity of its admissions process. The challenge lies in balancing the need for transparency and accuracy with the potential consequences of revealing such information, especially given the intern's junior position and limited authority. Careful judgment is required to determine the most appropriate and ethical course of action that upholds professional standards without causing undue harm or overstepping boundaries. The correct approach involves escalating the findings through the appropriate internal channels. This means reporting the discrepancy to a direct supervisor or the designated ethics officer within the university's administrative structure. This approach is right because it adheres to the principles of professional integrity and accountability expected of individuals within an academic institution. Specifically, it aligns with the implicit ethical guidelines governing academic administration, which prioritize accuracy, fairness, and the proper functioning of institutional processes. By reporting to a supervisor, the intern is fulfilling their duty to inform relevant parties of potential issues, allowing for a formal investigation and resolution. This also respects the hierarchical structure of the university, ensuring that the matter is handled by those with the authority and responsibility to address it. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the findings. This is ethically unacceptable because it constitutes a failure to act with due diligence and integrity. By remaining silent, the intern allows a potential flaw in the admissions process to persist, which could lead to unfair outcomes for applicants and damage the university's credibility. Another incorrect approach would be to directly contact external regulatory bodies or the media without first exhausting internal reporting mechanisms. This is professionally unsound because it bypasses established procedures for addressing internal issues. Such an action could be seen as a breach of trust and potentially violate university policies regarding the disclosure of internal information. Furthermore, it might lead to premature or unsubstantiated accusations, causing unnecessary reputational damage before the university has had a chance to investigate and rectify the situation. A third incorrect approach would be to attempt to correct the discrepancy independently without authorization. This is problematic as it could lead to further errors, unauthorized alterations of official records, and a breakdown of established administrative processes. It also demonstrates a lack of respect for the established chain of command and the expertise of those responsible for admissions. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the institution's ethical code and reporting procedures. First, assess the nature and severity of the discrepancy. Second, identify the appropriate internal channels for reporting such issues, typically a direct supervisor or an ethics committee. Third, document the findings clearly and factually. Fourth, report the issue through the designated channels, providing all necessary information. Finally, cooperate fully with any subsequent investigation, respecting confidentiality and professional boundaries. Question 17. The efficiency study reveals that a new pedagogical approach implemented at Andrei Saguna University has shown mixed results, with some metrics indicating improvement but others suggesting a decline in student engagement in specific disciplines. The university administration, anticipating positive publicity and potential donor interest, has requested a summary report that emphasizes the positive outcomes. Which of the following represents the most ethically responsible course of action for the researcher? Option A. Present a comprehensive report detailing all findings, including both positive and negative outcomes, along with an analysis of potential contributing factors and recommendations for improvement. Option B. Manipulate the data to present a more uniformly positive picture of the pedagogical approach's effectiveness. Option C. Prepare a summary report that focuses exclusively on the positive results, omitting any data that indicates a decline in student engagement. Option D. Delay the submission of the final report until further data can be collected, hoping that future results will be more favorable. The correct answer is A. Present a comprehensive report detailing all findings, including both positive and negative outcomes, along with an analysis of potential contributing factors and recommendations for improvement. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's desire for positive public perception and potential funding with the ethical obligation to report research findings accurately and transparently, even if they are unfavorable. The pressure to present a favorable outcome can lead to a conflict of interest, where personal or institutional gain might influence professional judgment. Careful consideration of the Andrei Saguna University's ethical guidelines and academic integrity principles is paramount. The correct approach involves transparently communicating the full findings of the efficiency study, including any limitations or less favorable results, to the relevant university stakeholders and, if applicable, to the public or funding bodies. This aligns with the core ethical principles of academic integrity, honesty, and the responsible dissemination of research. Specifically, it upholds the commitment to truthfulness in reporting, which is fundamental to the credibility of academic research and the institution itself. Andrei Saguna University's entrance exam likely emphasizes these values, expecting candidates to demonstrate an understanding of the importance of unbiased reporting. An incorrect approach that involves selectively highlighting positive results while downplaying or omitting negative findings would constitute a breach of academic honesty and potentially mislead stakeholders. This misrepresentation erodes trust and undermines the scientific process. Another incorrect approach, that of fabricating or manipulating data to achieve a desired outcome, is a severe ethical violation and a direct contravention of research integrity standards, leading to severe professional and institutional repercussions. Finally, an approach that involves delaying the release of unfavorable findings indefinitely to avoid scrutiny would also be unethical, as it prevents timely and accurate information from being available to those who need it for decision-making. Professionals faced with such situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical conduct and adherence to established guidelines. This involves first identifying the ethical dilemma and potential conflicts of interest. Next, they should consult relevant university policies, codes of conduct, and academic integrity principles. Seeking advice from a trusted senior colleague, ethics committee, or supervisor can provide valuable perspective. The decision should then be made based on the principle of transparency and the commitment to accurate reporting, even when the findings are not ideal. Question 18. The efficiency study reveals that a proposed restructuring of departmental administrative processes could significantly reduce operational costs. Professor Alina Popescu, a member of the faculty committee tasked with evaluating and recommending the implementation of this study, has recently invested a substantial amount in a private consulting firm that specializes in implementing such administrative restructurings. Professor Popescu believes her investment is separate from her academic role and that she can remain objective in her evaluation. What is the most ethically sound course of action for Professor Popescu? Option A. Proceed with the evaluation, confident in her ability to remain objective, and only disclose the investment if specifically asked about potential conflicts of interest. Option B. Immediately disclose her personal investment to the university's ethics committee and recuse herself from any further deliberations or voting on the efficiency study's recommendations. Option C. Advocate for the implementation of the efficiency study, arguing that her investment aligns with the university's goal of cost reduction and that her expertise is valuable. Option D. Resign from the faculty committee without disclosing the reason for her resignation, to avoid any appearance of impropriety. The correct answer is B. Immediately disclose her personal investment to the university's ethics committee and recuse herself from any further deliberations or voting on the efficiency study's recommendations. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals a potential conflict of interest that requires careful ethical consideration and adherence to the Andrei Saguna University's Code of Conduct and relevant Romanian academic regulations. The challenge lies in balancing the university's pursuit of operational improvement with the integrity of academic research and the personal ethical obligations of faculty members. Specifically, the scenario presents a situation where a faculty member's personal financial interests could be perceived to influence their professional judgment and the university's decision-making processes. The correct approach involves transparently disclosing the potential conflict of interest to the relevant university authorities and recusing oneself from any decision-making processes directly related to the efficiency study's implementation where personal gain is a factor. This upholds the principles of academic integrity, fairness, and impartiality. Transparency ensures that all parties are aware of potential biases, and recusal prevents the appearance or reality of undue influence. This aligns with ethical guidelines that mandate disclosure of conflicts and prioritize the institution's best interests over personal enrichment when such conflicts arise. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the implementation of the efficiency study without disclosing the personal investment. This constitutes a failure to adhere to the university's code of conduct, which typically requires faculty to disclose any financial interests that could create a conflict of interest. Such a failure erodes trust within the academic community and could lead to decisions that are not in the best interest of the university or its students, but rather serve the personal financial gain of the individual. Another incorrect approach would be to downplay the significance of the personal investment and argue that it does not influence professional judgment. A subjective intent may be to act impartially. The appearance of a conflict of interest is often as damaging as an actual one. Ethical frameworks emphasize the importance of avoiding even the appearance of impropriety to maintain public and institutional trust. A third incorrect approach would be to resign from the committee overseeing the efficiency study solely to avoid the disclosure requirement, without formally reporting the conflict. This circumvents the established procedures for managing conflicts of interest and does not address the underlying ethical issue of potential bias. It also deprives the university of the faculty members' expertise while failing to resolve the ethical dilemma. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's conflict of interest policy and ethical code. When a potential conflict is identified, the professional should 1. Recognize the potential conflict, 2. Consult relevant university policies and ethical guidelines, 3. Disclose the conflict to the appropriate authority, e.g., Department Head Ethics Committee, 4. Seek guidance on how to manage or recuse oneself from the situation, 5. Act in accordance with the university's directives to ensure integrity and impartiality. Question 19. The efficiency study reveals that a newly implemented academic program, while showing some initial positive engagement, has significant underlying structural flaws that are projected to lead to poor long-term student outcomes and increased resource strain. The university leadership is eager to highlight the initial engagement data in upcoming promotional materials and to potential donors, as the program was a pet project of a prominent benefactor. You are tasked with presenting the full findings. What is the most ethically sound approach? Option A. Subtly adjust the interpretation of the data to emphasize the positive aspects and minimize the significance of the identified structural flaws, framing them as minor challenges that can be easily overcome. Option B. Present the complete study findings, including the identified structural flaws and projected negative outcomes, alongside the initial positive engagement data, recommending a course of action to address the flaws. Option C. Focus solely on the initial positive engagement data in the presentation, omitting any mention of the structural flaws or projected negative outcomes to maintain a positive narrative for leadership and donors. Option D. Suggest delaying the full report and presentation until further analysis can be conducted, hoping that the initial positive reception might influence future perceptions and allow for a less critical review. The correct answer is B. Present the complete study findings, including the identified structural flaws and projected negative outcomes, alongside the initial positive engagement data, recommending a course of action to address the flaws. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's desire for positive public perception and potential funding opportunities with the ethical obligation to report findings accurately and transparently, even if they are unfavorable. The pressure to present a favorable outcome can create a conflict of interest, where personal or institutional gain might influence professional judgment. Careful consideration of the university's ethical code and the principles of academic integrity is paramount. The correct approach involves transparently presenting the full findings of the efficiency study, including any negative or suboptimal results, to the relevant university stakeholders. This aligns with the ethical principles of honesty, integrity, and accountability, which are fundamental to academic and professional conduct. Specifically, adherence to the Andrei Saguna University's Code of Ethics, which likely emphasizes truthful reporting of research and data, is crucial. This approach ensures that decisions are based on accurate information, fostering trust and credibility. An incorrect approach would be to selectively present only the positive aspects of the study, omitting or downplaying the negative findings. This constitutes a failure of honesty and integrity, potentially misleading decision-makers and the public. It violates the ethical duty to report findings truthfully and accurately, undermining the credibility of the research and the institution. Another incorrect approach would be to delay or suppress the report altogether, hoping the issue will resolve itself or be forgotten. This is a failure of accountability and transparency, demonstrating a lack of professional responsibility and potentially leading to greater problems down the line. Finally, attempting to subtly alter the data or methodology to produce a more favorable outcome would be a severe breach of academic and professional ethics, amounting to research misconduct. Professionals facing similar situations should follow a structured decision-making process. 1. Identify the ethical dilemma. Recognize the conflict between reporting unfavorable results and potential institutional pressure. 2. Consult relevant codes of conduct. Review the Andrei Saguna University's Code of Ethics and any professional guidelines applicable to the field of study. 3. Gather all facts. Ensure a complete understanding of the study's findings, methodology, and potential implications. 4. Consider stakeholders. Evaluate the impact of different reporting approaches on the university, students, faculty, and the public. 5. Seek advice. If unsure, consult with a trusted senior colleague, mentor, or the university's ethics committee. 6. Act with integrity. Choose the approach that upholds honesty, transparency, and accountability, even if it is difficult. Question 20. The control framework reveals that during the Andrei Saguna University entrance examination, a proctor observes a candidate discreetly using a hidden electronic device to access unauthorized information. The proctor is aware of the university's strict policy against any form of academic dishonesty and the potential consequences for both the cheating student and anyone who fails to report such incidents. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound course of action for the proctor? Option A. Confront the candidate directly and quietly instruct them to cease their actions. Option B. Immediately and discreetly report the observed misconduct to the chief invigilator or designated examination authority, providing all relevant details. Option C. Ignore the observation to avoid causing a scene and potentially jeopardizing the examination for other candidates. Option D. Discreetly inform the candidate that their actions have been noticed and advise them on how to better conceal their use of the device. The correct answer is B. Immediately and discreetly report the observed misconduct to the chief invigilator or designated examination authority, providing all relevant details. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to succeed and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation, upholding ethical principles while respecting the university's regulations. The correct approach involves immediate and transparent reporting of the observed misconduct to the appropriate university authority. This aligns with the ethical duty of integrity and honesty expected of all individuals associated with an academic institution. Specifically, the Andrei Saguna University's Code of Conduct, which all prospective students are expected to adhere to, mandates reporting of academic dishonesty. Failure to report such incidents can be interpreted as complicity and undermines the fairness of the examination process, potentially disadvantaging honest candidates. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the situation. This fails to uphold the ethical obligation to maintain academic integrity and can be seen as tacit approval of cheating. It also violates the spirit of the university's regulations, which aim to ensure a level playing field for all applicants. Another incorrect approach would be to confront the student directly during the exam. While seemingly proactive, this could disrupt the examination environment for other candidates, potentially leading to accusations of interference or harassment. Furthermore, it bypasses the established university procedures for handling academic misconduct, which are designed to ensure a fair and impartial investigation. A further incorrect approach would be to offer the student advice on how to avoid detection. This is a direct violation of ethical principles and university regulations. It actively aids in the perpetration of academic dishonesty, making the individual complicit in the misconduct and severely damaging their own credibility and the integrity of the examination process. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve recognizing the ethical conflict, recalling relevant university policies and codes of conduct, and prioritizing the reporting of misconduct through the designated channels. This ensures that the university can address the issue appropriately and maintain the fairness and credibility of its entrance examinations.